Echoes of Courage, A Father and Son War Story, Chapter 1. The legacy. The cold October wind swept golden leaves across Arlington Cemetery. Michael Harrison, 45, stood before a white marble headstone holding a yellowed letter in his trembling hands. At his feet, a wreath of fresh flowers contrasted with the date carved in stone. Sergeant James Harrison, 1945-1973. Vietnam? Dad, Michael whispered, his voice lost in the wind. I found your letters in Grandma's attic. Letters you never sent to me. Michael carefully opened the letter. The blue ink had faded, but the words were still legible. My dear Michael, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it home. I want you to know that every day in this God-forsaken jungle, I think of you. You were only 5 when I left, but you already showed the courage I hope you'll one day use for something greater than war. Don't follow in my footsteps, son. Be better than your old man. Tears rolled down Michael's face. He had spent 20 years hating his father for abandoning him, for choosing war over family. Now he discovered that James had tried to come home, but was killed in combat just 3 months before the end of his tour. Chapter 2. The decision. 2 weeks after visiting the cemetery, Michael was at his home in Denver, Colorado, when he received a call that would change his life forever. Mr. Harrison, this is Colonel Martinez, United States Army. I need to speak with you about a special mission. Michael frowned. He worked as a software engineer for a tech company, nothing that could interest the Army. Colonel, I think there's been a mistake. I have no connection to the Army. Actually, sir, you do. Your father, Sergeant James Harrison, left some important materials at his last post in Vietnam. Materials that could now help save American lives. Michael's heart raced. What kind of materials? Maps, codes, tunnel locations. Information that could help find American soldiers still listed as missing in action. We need someone with your technical skills to decrypt the digitized files. And, well, we need family authorization for the operation. Michael looked at his father's photo on the shelf. James was wearing his military uniform, smiling with pride. For the first time, Michael saw beyond the uniform. He saw a young man who, like him, had dreams and fears. Where do I need to go? Vietnam, sir. We leave in a week. Chapter 3. The journey. The military plane cut through clouds over the Pacific Ocean. Michael sat beside Colonel Martinez, studying his father's files. With each page, he discovered more about the man he had judged so harshly. James Harrison wasn't just a soldier. He was a brilliant strategist, a leader respected by his men, and someone who risked his own life to save others. His notes showed a man tormented by war, but determined to make a difference. Your father saved my life, you know, Colonel Martinez said suddenly. Michael looked up from the documents. How so? I was just a private when I met James. We were trapped in a Viet Cong tunnel for 3 days. He could have escaped alone, but stayed with us. Used his ingenuity to find a way out. 7 men made it home because of him. Then why did he die? Martinez was silent for a long moment. Because he went back for more soldiers. Always went back. That was James Harrison's trademark. He never left anyone behind. Chapter 4. The return. Ho Chi Minh City had changed dramatically since the war. Skyscrapers gleamed where once there was only jungle and destruction. Michael felt lost, but also curious. This was the place where his father had spent his final years. The team headed to a rural area, where James's maps indicated the location of an old American outpost. Michael carried a high-tech military laptop, prepared to decrypt the codes his father had created. Here, Martinez said, stopping in front of a vegetation-covered hill. According to your father's maps, there's a bunker buried here. The excavation took 2 days. When they finally found the entrance, Michael felt a chill. It was as if he was about to enter his father's life. The bunker was preserved by humidity and jungle. Inside, they found old military equipment, detailed maps of tunnel networks, and something that made Michael tremble. A second collection of letters addressed to him. Chapter 5. The lost letters. Michael sat on the dusty bunker floor and opened the first letter. Michael, my son, today marks 6 months since I arrived here. I wake up every morning thinking of you. I hope you're growing strong and brave. Your mother wrote saying you ask about me. I don't know how to explain why I'm here, but maybe someday you'll understand that sometimes we must fight for something greater than ourselves. The second letter was dated 3 months later. Son, I lost 2 men today. They were young, your age when you become an adult. I promised their families I'd bring them back. I couldn't keep my promise. This kills me inside, but I must continue because there are other men here who have children like you waiting for them at home. Michael continued reading, letter after letter. Each one revealed more about his father's internal struggle. Love for family versus duty to his soldiers. The last letter was unfinished. Michael, tomorrow we're going on a dangerous mission. If something happens to me, I want you to know you were my greatest joy. Every memory of you gave me strength to continue. Don't be like me. Don't let war define you. Be better. Be the man I always dreamed you'd become. Be a father I couldn't be. Chapter 6. The discovery. Using his technology knowledge, Michael managed to decrypt his father's codes. The maps revealed the exact location of 3 camps where American soldiers had been held prisoner. More importantly, the documents contained information about soldiers still listed as missing. My God, Martinez murmured, looking at the data on the laptop. Your father mapped the entire Viet Cong tunnel network in this region. With this information, we can locate sites where American soldiers might be buried. Michael felt a mixture of pride and sadness. His father had died protecting this information, knowing that someday it could help bring closure to other families. There's more, Michael said, pointing to a coded section. He hid coordinates for a prisoner camp that was never found. There might be survivors there. Chapter 7. The mission. The rescue team was assembled quickly. Michael insisted on going along despite Martinez's protests. Colonel, these are my father's coordinates. If there's a chance to save someone, I need to be there. You're not a soldier, Michael. It's dangerous. My father wasn't just a soldier. He was a man trying to do what was right. Now it's my turn. The Vietnamese jungle was dense and humid. Michael followed the team, carrying the laptop with his father's maps. Every step was a connection to James. He was literally following in his father's footsteps. After 6 hours of hiking, they reached the coordinates. In the middle of the jungle, they found the remains of an old prisoner camp. It had been abandoned for decades, but the structures were still visible. Here, Michael said, consulting the maps. Dad marked this point as unofficial cemetery. There might be soldiers buried here. The excavation team began working. Within hours, they found the first remains, along with military dog tags. Private Thomas Mackenzie, Martinez read. Missing in action in 1972. Michael felt a lump in his throat. His father had died trying to save these men, and now, 50 years later, they were finally being brought home. Chapter 8. The sacrifice. On the 3rd day of excavation, the team found something unexpected. A small natural cave that had been used as a hideout. Inside, they found more American military equipment and a discovery that changed everything. James Harrison's personal diary. Michael opened it with trembling hands. Final entry, March 15, 1973. Found the prisoner camp. There's evidence that at least 12 American soldiers died here. I need to mark the exact location so someday someone can find them. Mackenzie, Rodriguez, Patterson. They all have families waiting for them. I can't leave them here forever. I know this might be my last mission. The Viet Cong are closing in. But if I die here, at least my maps and codes will be safe in the bunker. Maybe someday my son will understand that I didn't abandon him. I was trying to save other sons so they could go home. Michael closed the diary and looked at the sky through the trees. He finally understood. His father hadn't chosen war over family. He had chosen to save other families, even if it meant sacrificing his own. Chapter 9. The reconciliation. That night, Michael sat alone near the camp, holding his father's diary. For the first time in 20 years, he spoke to James as if he were there. Dad, sorry. I'm sorry for hating you. I'm sorry for not understanding. You weren't a perfect hero, but you were a good man trying to do what was right. The night wind rustled the trees, and Michael felt a strange peace. It was as if his father was finally answering. I promise I'll continue your work. I'll help bring these men home, and I'll be the father you wanted me to be. Chapter 10. The heroes return. The rescue operation lasted 2 weeks. In the end, the team had located the remains of 15 missing American soldiers, all thanks to James Harrison's maps and codes. Michael participated in every excavation, every identification. Each soldier found was a victory for his father, a promise fulfilled decades later. When they returned to the United States, Michael accompanied the transport of the remains. 15 families would finally have the closure they had sought for 50 years. Chapter 11. The ceremony. Arlington Cemetery was packed. 15 flag-draped coffins were lined up, and hundreds of family members had come for the burial ceremony. Michael stood in the front row, wearing the military uniform that had belonged to his father. Martinez had given him a posthumous decoration, the Bronze Star with Valor, in recognition of James Harrison's sacrifice. "Ladies and gentlemen," said the military chaplain, "today we bury not just 15 soldiers. We bury 15 sons, 15 fathers, 15 brothers who gave their lives for freedom. And we do this thanks to the sacrifice of one man who never gave up bringing them home." His father had been a true hero, even though Michael had only realized it decades later. Chapter 12. The new beginning. 6 months later, Michael had changed careers. He left the tech company and joined an organization that helped locate missing soldiers. His job was to use modern technology to decrypt old codes and map battlefield locations. On his desk, he kept a photo of his father and one of the letters James had never sent. Every day, before starting work, Michael read the same sentence: "Be the man I always dreamed you'd become." Chapter 13. The heritage. Michael married Sarah, a nurse he had met during his work with veterans. 2 years later, they had a son, James Michael Harrison, named after the grandfather he would never meet. The day little James was born, Michael took him to Arlington Cemetery. Standing before his father's headstone, he held the baby and said, "Dad, I want you to meet your grandson. I promise I'll tell him about you, about your courage, your sacrifice, and how you never gave up doing what was right." The wind blew gently, swaying the trees around them. Michael smiled, feeling his father's presence. Chapter 14. The legacy continues. Little James grew up hearing stories about his grandfather. Michael made sure the boy understood that heroes weren't perfect. They were ordinary people who made extraordinary choices. When James turned 10, Michael took him to Vietnam to visit the places where his grandfather had served. Together, they visited the bunker where James Harrison had hidden his maps and codes. "Dad," the boy asked, "was Grandpa a hero?" Michael smiled and put his hand on his son's shoulder. "Your grandfather was a man who believed it was worth fighting for something greater than himself. Does that make him a hero?" "I think so." Chapter 15. Full circle. 20 years later, Michael was now 65. His organization had helped locate over 100 missing soldiers, all using techniques he had learned decrypting his father's codes. James Jr., now 22nd, had graduated in computer science and worked alongside his father. Together, they had developed algorithms that could analyze old maps and identify possible locations of missing soldiers. "Dad," James Jr. said one day, "I found something interesting in Grandpa's files." Michael looked up from his computer. "What is it?" "There are references to a final hideout, something he called the Final Project. It looks like he hid more information somewhere." Michael felt his heart race. Even after 2 decades, his father still had secrets to reveal. Chapter 16. The final discovery. The research led Michael and James Jr. back to Vietnam. Using ground-penetrating radar technology, they managed to locate James Harrison's Final Project, an underground bunker that had gone unnoticed for 50 years. Inside the bunker, they found something extraordinary: a complete file on war crimes, evidence of atrocities committed by both Americans and North Vietnamese, and a list of civilians who had helped American soldiers and were executed for it. "My God," Michael whispered. Dad was documenting everything. He wanted the truth to be known. James Jr. looked at the documents. Grandpa wasn't just saving soldiers. He was trying to save history. Chapter 17. The truth revealed. Michael and James Jr. spent months organizing James Harrison's documents. They worked with historians, journalists, and human rights organizations to verify the information. The documents revealed stories of heroism and horror, of soldiers who had protected civilians and others who had committed atrocities. But most importantly, they revealed the names of hundreds of Vietnamese who had risked their lives to help American soldiers. "These people saved American lives," Michael said at a press conference. "My father wanted them to be remembered as heroes, not forgotten by history." Chapter 18, International Reconciliation. James Harrison's documents led to an international reconciliation initiative. Vietnamese families who had lost loved ones for helping Americans were honored. American soldiers who had been unjustly accused were cleared, and war crimes from both sides were officially acknowledged. Michael became an advocate for reconciliation between American and Vietnamese veterans. He organized meetings where former enemies could meet as human beings, not as symbols of war. "My father believed that war shouldn't define who we are," Michael said at one of these meetings. He believed we could be better. Chapter 19, The New Generation. James Jr. married a young Vietnamese American woman named Lynn, whose grandfather had been one of the civilians who helped American soldiers. Their marriage symbolized the reconciliation James Harrison had dreamed of. When they had their first daughter, they named her Grace Harrison Guion, a name that represented the union of two cultures, two histories, two families touched by war but united by peace. Michael held his granddaughter in his arms and whispered, "Dad, you did it. You brought peace where there was war, love where there was hate." Epilogue. The eternal echo today. The James Harrison Center for Missing Soldiers is one of the most respected organizations in the world. Located in Washington, D.C., it helps families from all countries find missing soldiers. At the center's entrance, there's a plaque with James Harrison's final words, found in his last diary. "True courage isn't never being afraid. It's doing what's right despite the fear. It's choosing love over hate, hope over despair, truth over silence." Michael, now 70, still works at the center because he learned that true heroes aren't those who win wars. They're those who build the peace that comes after. And in this endless work of healing and reconciliation, James Harrison's legacy lives on, echoing through generations as a promise that love always triumphs over hate, truth over lies, and hope over despair. The war had ended long ago, but James Harrison's courage, and his son Michael's, continued saving lives, one family at a time. Sometimes the greatest battle isn't the one we fight on the battlefield, but the one we fight in our hearts, the battle to forgive, to understand, and to love despite the pain. This is the battle my father won, and the one I fight every day. Michael Harrison in the preface of Letters from a Soldier, the legacy of James Harrison.